Hello, my friend. Welcome to our space here at Storyline English. Take a deep breath and get ready. Picture a world where one family rules a whole country for more than 70 years. Picture a world where children learn to sing about their leader before they learn to read. Picture a world where the border between two nations is also a border between two very different lives. Today, we open the door to this world together. This is a story about power, about fear, and about the quiet strength of ordinary people. Listen closely, my friend. This is a story of discovery. This is a journey into history. Are you ready? Let's begin. Our story starts in the year 1945. World War II ends. Japan loses control of Korea, a small peninsula in East Asia. For many years, Korea was one country with one language, one culture, and one long history. Families lived, worked, and dreamed together on this land for centuries. But after the war, two powerful nations step in. The Soviet Union takes control of the North. The United States takes control of the South. They draw a line across the map, almost by accident, almost overnight. This line has a name, the 38th parallel. At first, people believe the line is temporary. They believe Korea will soon become one country again, just as it always was. They are wrong. In the north, a young man named Kim Il-sung rises to power. He is only in his 30s. He fought against Japan as a guerrilla soldier, and now Soviet leaders choose him to lead this new northern government. He speaks about freedom. He speaks about a bright future for workers and farmers. Many people listen, and many people believe him. Nobody knows yet how long his family will rule. Nobody knows that his son, and then his grandson, will follow him, generation after generation. In 1948, the North becomes its own country. It takes a new name, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. Listen to that name carefully, my friend. It sounds gentle. It sounds hopeful. It even sounds democratic. But real life inside this new country will look very different from its name. This is where our journey begins. A single line on a map, a single family taking power, and a story that the world is still trying to fully understand, even today. What kind of nation grows from a beginning like this one? Let's continue our journey together, slowly, and find out. Just 2 years after North Korea is born, war breaks out. In June 1950, the North Korean army crosses the 38th parallel and attacks the South. This is the start of the Korean War. It is a terrible time for everyone on the peninsula. Soldiers from many countries join the fight, including troops from the United States, China, and the United Nations. Cities burn. Families are separated in the chaos, often in a single afternoon. Millions of people lose their homes, and many lose their lives on both sides of the new border. For 3 long years, the war continues, moving up and down the peninsula like a slow, painful storm. Finally, in 1953, both sides sign an agreement to stop fighting. But listen carefully, my friend, because this detail matters. They never sign a peace treaty. Technically, North Korea and South Korea are still at war today, more than 70 years later. After the fighting stops, North Korea is left in ruins. Factories are destroyed. Roads are broken. Families search desperately for missing children and parents among the rubble. In this difficult, painful moment, Kim Il-sung makes an important choice. Instead of opening his country to the world for help, he closes it. He builds walls, not bridges. He tells his people that North Korea must depend on no one else, that outside nations cannot be trusted. This idea slowly grows into something called Juche, a philosophy of self-reliance that becomes almost like a new religion. It sounds like a proud, strong idea on the surface, but we must ask a quiet question here and hold it gently in our minds. What happens to a nation that closes its doors to the whole world? What happens to a leader who asks his people to trust only him and no one else? These questions will follow us through the rest of our story today. For now, simply remember this: pain and destruction from the war never fully leave North Korea. They become part of its very foundation, hidden quietly beneath everything that comes next in this long chronicle. In the years after the war, Kim Il-sung builds more than just a government. He builds a myth, carefully and patiently, piece by piece. Statues of him appear in every city, standing tall in the main square. His picture hangs in every home, often in the most respected place on the wall. Schools teach children that he is like a wise father to the whole nation, someone who loves them more than their own parents could. This is not simple respect, my friend. This is something much deeper, something historians later call a cult of personality. Slowly, the line between truth and story blends together, until even honest people find it hard to tell them apart. Meanwhile, daily life for ordinary North Koreans becomes very controlled, very structured, very quiet. The government decides where people are allowed to live. The government decides what job each person will do for their entire life. The government even decides what people are allowed to say out loud, and sometimes even what they are allowed to think. There is no free press. There are no free elections. Radios are built to receive only official government stations, nothing else. Here is a small but powerful detail, my friend. When a family buys a radio, government workers seal the dial shut so it can never be changed to another station. Only official voices can be heard, day after day, year after year. Imagine growing up in a place like this. Imagine never once hearing another point of view. In sharp contrast, just across the same border, South Korea moves in a very different direction. Over time, it opens itself to trade, to new ideas, and eventually to full democracy. Two nations, born from the exact same land and the exact same people, slowly grow into two completely different worlds. One grows louder, richer, and more open to outside voices. The other grows quieter, poorer, and more closed with each passing year. This contrast becomes one of the sharpest in modern history, a living experiment that the whole world can watch. And it raises a gentle, important mystery that we carry forward with us. What does it truly cost a nation to build one single man into something like a god? Kim Il-sung leads North Korea until his death in 1994. After he dies, the government makes an unusual decision. They do not simply bury him like other world leaders. Instead, they preserve his body carefully and keep it on public display so citizens can still visit him, almost like a living monument. His son, Kim Jong-il, becomes the new leader, taking the title of Eternal General Secretary. But Kim Jong-il inherits a country already in deep, quiet trouble. Soon after he takes power, North Korea faces one of the darkest periods in its entire history. Heavy floods damage the farmland across the country. The old Soviet Union, which used to send fuel, food, and financial support, no longer exists to help North Korea. Food becomes dangerously scarce, almost overnight. This terrible period gets a quiet, almost gentle official name: the Arduous March. But the reality hiding behind that name is anything but gentle, my friend. Between the mid-1990s and the early 2000s, a devastating famine sweeps across the entire country. Historians and researchers believe hundreds of thousands of people, possibly many more, die from hunger and related illness during these years. Families search desperately for any food they can find. Some people eat things that were never meant to be food at all, just to survive one more day. Children stop growing at a normal, healthy rate, and this effect can still be measured decades later. And yet, during this exact same time, the government continues building large monuments and continues funding its powerful military. This is a deeply painful turning point in our story today. It reveals a wide, painful gap between the image the government presents to the world and the daily reality quietly faced by its own people. Many North Koreans begin, for the very first time, to lose faith in the promises they were taught to believe since childhood. Some begin to dream, quietly and very dangerously, of another kind of life beyond the border. What happens when a people slowly start to question the only story they have ever been given? Our journey continues gently into that very difficult question. As the worst of the famine slowly eases, another hidden reality gradually comes into focus for the outside world: North Korea's political prison camp system. These are not ordinary prisons, my friend. Survivors and defectors describe vast camps hidden deep in remote mountain valleys, sealed completely off from the rest of the country and the outside world. People are sent there not only for actual crimes, but sometimes simply for being related to someone accused of disloyalty to the state. This harsh practice is called guilt by association, and it can affect up to 3 generations of a single family at once. Life inside these camps is described again and again as extremely harsh. Hard, forced labor, very little food, and constant, grinding fear. International human rights groups and the United Nations have investigated these reports very carefully over many years. In 2014, a UN commission published a very detailed and thorough report on the situation. It compared conditions found in North Korea to some of the darkest chapters of the entire 20th century. Listen to that comparison for a quiet moment, my friend, and let it slowly sink in. At the same time, we must also picture ordinary daily life outside these camps, because most North Koreans never see them directly. Most people live in small villages and modest cities, working, raising children, cooking simple meals, and trying to survive day by day, much like people anywhere else in the world. Many still deeply believe in their leaders because it is genuinely the only story they have ever been taught, from birth until now. Others slowly begin to find small, careful ways to see beyond the border, through smuggled radios, foreign films hidden on small memory cards, or whispered stories quietly shared by traders. These are small sparks of outside knowledge, passed carefully from person to person, hand to hand. Each spark carries real risk, but each spark also quietly carries hope. This is the hidden, unseen side of the Iron Kingdom, my friend. The side almost never shown in official state photographs or on state television. Before we continue forward in time, let us pause and learn about something called Songbun, because it helps explain so much of daily life inside North Korea. Songbun is a strict social class system, and it decides almost everything about a person's future from the very moment they are born. It divides citizens into broad groups, often described simply as the loyal core class, the wavering class, and the hostile class. Your Songbun depends heavily on what your grandparents did, decades ago, long before you were even born. If your ancestors fought loyally for Kim Il-sung, your family often receives better jobs, better food, and better housing, generation after generation. But if your ancestors were landowners, religious believers, or were connected in any way to South Korea or Japan, your family can carry that heavy label for decades, quietly limiting your opportunities at every single turn. Imagine a young student who studies incredibly hard, who dreams of becoming a doctor or an engineer, only to discover that her Songbun quietly closes that door before she even applies. This invisible system shapes marriage, education, housing, and even where a family is allowed to live within the country. It creates a hidden hierarchy that outsiders rarely see or fully understand, even after years of study. Listen closely here, my friend, because this connects directly to something deeply human: the desire for a fair, equal chance in life. Many defectors later say that discovering how Songbun secretly controlled their entire life was one of the most painful realizations of their journey toward freedom. It helps us understand, quietly and clearly, that the walls inside North Korea are not only made of concrete and barbed wire. Some of the strongest walls are completely invisible, built instead from old family history, official paperwork, and generations of quiet, careful control. In December 2011, Kim Jong-il dies suddenly of a heart attack while traveling by train. His youngest son, Kim Jong-un, quickly becomes the country's new leader. He is still in his 20s at the time, partly educated in Europe, and at first, the wider world is genuinely unsure what kind of leader he will become. Some observers hope he might slowly begin to open the country to outside influence. Instead, Kim Jong-un focuses very heavily on rapidly building North Korea's nuclear weapons program. Missile tests soon appear regularly in international news. Tense meetings happen with world leaders, including a historic summit with a sitting American president in 2018, held first in Singapore and later in Vietnam. For a brief, hopeful moment, the world watches closely, quietly wondering if real change is finally coming to this closed nation. Yet inside the country itself, daily control over information, movement, and travel remains extremely tight, almost unchanged. Under Kim Jong-un, however, some small private markets, called Jangmadang, continue quietly growing across the country. These informal markets first began during the terrible famine years, when ordinary people simply needed to trade goods just to survive one more winter. Over time, a small layer of private, semi-legal trade now exists alongside the strict official government system, creating a small crack of economic freedom inside a very closed structure. Meanwhile, thousands of North Koreans have made the extremely dangerous choice to escape their homeland, traveling secretly through China and sometimes onward through Southeast Asia, hoping eventually to reach South Korea. Their journeys are filled with constant danger, deep fear, and painful uncertainty at every step. Many never make it safely to freedom. Those who do arrive safely often carry deep emotional scars for the rest of their lives, along with painful, unanswered questions about the family and friends they were forced to leave behind. Their stories, shared quietly and bravely with journalists and researchers, help the outside world slowly understand a country that still remains, in many important ways, one of the most closed and mysterious places on Earth today. Behind every historical fact we have carefully shared with you today, there are real human faces, real families, and real quiet stories. A grandmother who still remembers the sound of warplanes as a frightened young child. A father who quietly gave away his own small portion of food to his hungry children during the famine years, saying nothing about his own hunger. A young woman who crossed a freezing river alone at night, leaving everything she had ever known behind, just for a small chance at a completely different life. These are the unseen scars of North Korea's people, my friend. Scars that do not always show clearly on the outside, but live quietly inside memory and heart for many years afterward. Many escaped North Koreans describe a strange, painful mix of feelings after they finally leave. They feel deep relief to finally be free, but they also feel heavy grief for the family members they left behind, and quiet confusion inside a fast, unfamiliar new world they barely understand. Learning simple, everyday things, like using modern money or reading a subway map, can suddenly feel completely overwhelming for someone raised in such a closed system. Even the English language itself often becomes a new, difficult mountain for them to slowly climb, one small step at a time. In many quiet ways, my friend, that connects directly to why we are here together right now, today. Language can become a wall that separates people, or language can become a bridge that gently connects them. Story can be a way to lock people inside one single narrow view, as we have clearly seen throughout North Korea's long history. But story can also become a way to open windows, to help us truly understand people whose daily lives look completely different from our own comfortable lives. That is the quiet, powerful gift of learning a new language together. It lets us listen to more voices around the world. It lets us understand more journeys, more struggles, and more quiet victories. And sometimes, it even lets us gently imagine a kinder, more open world for everyone. So, my friend, what can we quietly carry with us from this long, difficult, and important story? Here is one simple lesson to hold on to. Information and freedom of choice are precious gifts, gifts that many people around the world still do not fully have, even today. When we have the chance to learn freely, to travel, to speak our minds, or simply to hear different points of view, that is something truly worth appreciating every single day. As an English learner, you are doing something quietly powerful right now in this very moment, simply by listening. Every time you listen to a story like this one, you are opening a small window to the wider world around you. You are building a bridge made of words, one careful sentence at a time. Language is never only about grammar rules or new vocabulary lists. It is truly about connection between human beings. It is about understanding lives beyond our own borders, our own countries, and our own comfortable daily assumptions. I hope today's long journey through North Korea's dark history helps you see both the deep pain and the quiet resilience of its people. And I hope it reminds you why learning English and listening carefully to stories like this one truly matters in your own life. If this story moved you in some way, my friend, please consider sharing it with someone else who might also enjoy this kind of calm, meaningful learning journey. Leave a comment below and tell me one single thing you learned today, written simply in English using your own words. It helps you practice your new language, and it helps our small, growing community learn together, side by side. And if you would like to continue this journey with us, remember to follow Storyline English so you never miss our next story together. Thank you so much for listening today, my friend. Until next time, keep listening, keep learning, and keep discovering the world, one story at a time. This has been Storyline English.